Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto becomes the Primordial Wolf, part 2, hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Deciding that they had bickered enough, Hinata, the head princess of the three, spoke up. Ino-chan, Sakura-chan, everyone stopped talking, as the soft, but strong voice of the Hyuga princess spoke up without looking at them. Naruto-kan isn't even here yet. Just sit down before Iruka-sensei yells at you. She spoke with a soft smile that caused many of the guys to gain hearts for eyes, and blushes on their faces. Ino and Sakura both looked around the room for the flash of gold and orange that was Naruto Uzumaki. They were, however, disappointed when it failed to appear. Is Naruto-kan late? Sakura thought out loud in worry, as she and Ino made their way up the stairs to Hinata. Ino crossed her arms, as she walked beside Sakura. That baka better not be. She huffed while turning her head to the side. He said that he's gonna stop holding back today, and show everyone who exactly helped us train to become the strongest females of our year. His anger at the blonde quickly melted into excitement at the aspect of hopefully seeing Naruto actually get serious. Both her and Sakura sighed dreamily when they thought about the amazing blonde that showed them the value of training, and not dieting, and the result clearly showed with their toned stomach and arms. To their parents, they looked like full-fledged kunoichi without the headband. Even Hinata's dad couldn't help but admit that she was worthy of the title of the Hyuga clan heiress. One of the more braver fanboys with brown hair, dark slitted eyes, red fang marks, a gray hoodie, and brown pants along with an average face, and white puppy sat on his head, stood up, having enough of their talk about Naruto. Why do you even care about the dead last anyway? There are so many other boys who actually deserve to have your attention. He thumbed his chest with a cocky, arrogant smile, completely oblivious to the dark and threatening aura that surrounded the three girls that heard him. Like me, I'm much better than that loose, he yelled out in pain, as he was sent flying into a wall by female fury, making spider web cracks where he impacted across the room by a wicked left hook from a furious Sakura, who stood there covered in a shroud of fire and flames for eyes. Ino next to her in the same shape as Sakura. Sakura narrowed her eyes at the dazed boy as he slowly gathered himself. How dare you? She growled out with gritted teeth, her eyes alight with flames of anger. Naruto-kan is not a dead last. She humped with annoyance, as she crossed her arms in front of her, and jerked her head to the side in disgust, sending her pink waterfall whirling around. Making her way up the stairs in silence, as Ino glared at the down boy with rage. She was just about to turn away, but not before getting her own little word in. And besides, she turned her back to Kiba, as if washing her hand. She looked back at him with a condescending smile. Naruto is so much better than a lousy mutt like you, Kiba. He could beat you, and anyone in here any day of the week. Remember that, she snapped warningly, as she woke up to sit next to Sakura, who had placed herself next to Hinata at the top. Ino sat down with a huff next to her childhood friend. Can you believe the team? She almost yelled out while cracking her knuckles menacingly to her friends who giggled at her actions. Calm down, Ino-chan, giggled Hinata, as she covered her mouth with her hand like a noble would, looking at her fuming friend. Naruto-kan will be flattered that you think so highly of him, though she took on a mock-thinking pose with her finger on her chin, as she tapped rhythmically. She looked at Sakura, seemingly ignoring Ino's rosy face, but both she and Sakura could see the mirth in Hinata's whitey lavender eyes. Should we tell him, Sakura-chan? He would be so happy to know his Inoheim defended him. She leaned into the pink-haired girl, as she struggled to keep her laughter in, and whispered loud enough for the now scarlet Ino to hear. Maybe he will give her a big kiss, like a prince would a princess. She and Sakura broke out into loud laughter, as steam poured out of Ino's ears, images of hot kissing action filling her head, blood trickling out her nose. All noise was stopped, as a black and silver blur shot through the open window, and came to a stop at the front of the class. Iruka was quick to stand up, and grab a kunai, ready to defend the class or hold off an enemy. Almost everyone gasped when they noticed the signature gold and silver hair of one Naruto Uzumaki, in the style of the Namikaze Hokage. Naruto stood to his true height of 5'6", his hair, and new black with silver flames cloak, reminiscent of the fourth Hokage's, swaying softly in the non-existent wind. Iruka put away his kunai, but held onto his clipboard, having been getting ready to call the register. He, however, could keep his jaw open or his eyes normal, when he figured out who it was, and who he looked like. Hey Iruka-sensei, his voice was more mature and charming, its childlike allure gone. I'm not late, am I? Naruto sent Iruka a foxy grin, as he rubbed the back of his head. Iruka absent-mindedly took note of a few girls squealing, and the fear of sounds of 3 different giggles, followed by thuds. Iruka's hand started to shake, as he looked down, his hair covering his eyes in the front view. His face turned red, as a vein pulsed on his face in rage. His head expanded a few times in his infamous big head jutsu, as he shouted Yubaka. Then brought his fist down on his more or less little brother's head. Now? The whole class just watched the byplay with shock and stunned faces. Most admiring his new look, it was definitely better than that stupid orange Kill Me Now jumpsuit. Some were wondering where he got his sword from, and if he could use it. A few select girls passed out from blood loss when they saw just how handsome he looked now, along with how his shirt clung to his upper body, showing his compact and tight muscles. His looks even outclassed Sasuke's. The main three that passed out were Ino Yamanaka, Sakura Haruno, and Hinata Hyuga, Naruto's closest friends. Each with their own little perverse thoughts of seeing Naruto's transformation. Naruto laughed when he saw them laid out on the floor with blood running down their noses and happy smiles on their faces, letting out an occasional perverted giggle. Just like he thought they would react because all his Haims had reacted the same way in his past life, it was always comforting to have this effect on him. It told him that they were at least attracted to him physically. Naruto walked up the stairs towards the three, passing the glaring Sasuke, and sending him a glare back. "Hey dead last," called out the arrogant voice of Kiba Inuzuka, wanting to gain some of the pride he had lost from the brutal punch Sakura had dealt him earlier. "Just because you look like a shinobi now doesn't mean you are one." He crossed his arms while sending Naruto a fanged grin, his elongated fangs appearing over his bottom lip, waiting for the response he knew was coming from the easily tempered Naruto. Kiba was surprised, as was most of the class, when the blonde Jubi chuckled merrily at the Inuzuka clan hair. "No it doesn't, but power and skill does." He sent Kiba a foxy grin of his own, as his eyes shone with amusement, "Both of which I have in spades. This sort of for show, you know." He laughed at the stunned looks that were sent his way by everyone bar Hinata, as Ino and Sakura were still a bit out of it. The Hyuga princess sent him a warm and happy smile when he returned to her, making pretty pink appear on her moon-white skin. Naruto sat down next to a sleeping student. Shikamaru Nara clarified Naruto, as he looked at one of his closet male friends, right after Rock Lee, and right before, believe it or not, Niji Hyuga after he was able to get him out of his fate and destiny crap. Ino and Sakura snapped out of their own little world, as Naruto sat down and started to listen to Iruka, as he called out names from his board. Naruto had told them that he was getting a wardrobe change finally, but kept it a secret from them, as a surprise. All three of the ice princesses would agree that it was well worth the wait, mainly because of the way it would cling to his muscular torso, and hinted at his godly and drool-worthy, for his age, physique. "Wow," breathed Ino, as she looked at the back of Naruto's head. "What an improvement." She whispered to an equally stunned Sakura, both missing Naruto's shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. Hinata, however, didn't, as she too had to cover her mouth and turn her head to the side to hide her amusement. Sakura nodded in agreement, also staring at Naruto's golden locks. "Yeah, Naruto-kun looks so handsome now, much better than his stupid orange jumpsuit." Naruto's shoulders suddenly stopped shaking, as Hinata and Ino looked at Sakura with shock and horror. Naruto slowly raised from his seat and turned to look at the wide-eyed Sakura, his face blank. "How dare you," he whispered in a quiet voice that made most near him shiver. "Insult the godly color of orange." Naruto leaned over so he was almost face to face with the sweating form of Sakura, but she sat there unmoving while looking Naruto in the eye with a firm resolve, strong in her opinion. Both stared at the other in a tense silence. Suddenly, Naruto broke out in a happy smile, making everyone breathe a sigh of relief, as the feeling in the air was lifted. "It's nice to hear that I look handsome to you though," he whispered to her, his hot breath brushing across her face, making her blush a lovely shade of red. Naruto chuckled at the look on her face, taking great joy in his effect on her. Just as he was about to sit back down, the person in front of him stood up, telling a story to his friends, knocking into Naruto. Time froze when Naruto realized what was happening, and there was nothing that he could really do to stop the motion without grabbing a handful of Sakura's body. She seemed to realize this too, as her eyes widened with a multitude of emotions. Ino and Hinata watched, as Naruto slowly fell towards the frozen Sakura. Ino's eyes narrowed at the hidden look of happiness on Sakura's face. Hinata just shook her head with a soft smile. This all seemed terribly set up to her. Almost like there was someone setting these things up. Sakura couldn't help but look into Naruto's eyes, as his face closed the distance. "Moo," she yelled to herself, willing her body to follow her orders. "You want this? Don't kid yourself," she heard her inner voice. "But Naruto-kun will think that this was only an accident, and brush it off. I wanted to give it to him on a date or something. Not like this." She mentally panicked, as the space between Naruto and herself decreased down to mere inches. "Too late," replied inner Sakura in a sing-song voice, as Naruto connected with Sakura. Right on the lips. Both Naruto and Sakura froze up, as the class watched on in shock and horror, as the dead last locked lips with the pink princess of the ice princesses. Sakura's mind shut down, as Naruto's natural musk and unique scent of forest pine and mint flooded her body, his soft, firm lips covering her own. Her eyes slowly closed on their own accord, as she unconsciously leaned into the kiss, burying her hands in his surprisingly soft gold and silver locks, deepening the unintentional embrace of lips. Naruto moaned out in surprise, as a pair of arms dragged his head down into the kiss. He didn't fight, as their lips moved in perfect sync. The smell of Sakura's cherry, just like her namesake shampoo, filled Naruto's nose. He ran his hands through her long, silky, and soft hair, hearing her moan out at the affectionate act. The sweet taste of honey and strawberries, one of her favorite treats, assaulted Naruto's senses, threatening to overwhelm him. He loved to feel her soft skin in his hands again, greatly missing it for the past over 100 since she was taken from him. Kami, how he missed this. Before they could get any further lost in each other, a nearby cough made them break apart with a speed that would have made the fourth Hokage's famous Shurikenjutsu jealous, something Naruto could attest to. A red-faced Sakura and a slightly pink Naruto refused to look at the other, as they found the origin of the cough was from one red-faced Iruka Yamino. Now that you are no longer lost in the other, shall we continue? Iruka questioned in annoyance without making eye contact with the two, deeply embarrassed by witnessing their shockingly hot and steamy kiss for their age. Ino ignored Iruka, as she glared at a volcano-red Sakura who tried to sink into her chair to avoid the looks of other seething jealousy and rage. Hinata just shook her head in exasperation while thinking about the fact she had to talk to both Ino and Sakura about a law she had found for clans with one remaining member. What joy that would be, especially if they felt the same way as she did about the blonde baka. Iruka coughed again to compose himself before speaking to the entire class. Today marks the day where you could take on the Konoha forehead protector and become a shinobi. I have the utmost confidence that most, if not all of you will pass the test and become genin. Whatever the outcome, I just want you to know that it has been a pleasure to teach each and every one of you. The whole class listened with rapt attention, quite the contrast to how they would normally respond to one of his lectures. Now he said, as he walked towards the door and held it open. The first portion of the exam is Taijutsu, follow me to the field. Mizuki is already out there waiting. The class were quick to fall in after their sensei, blood pumping, and ready for anything. Training ground behind the academy. The class walked to the back of the academy talking among one another excitedly, the intimate moments shared between Sakura and Naruto all, but forgotten by most of the students. Except a select few. Ino walked close to Sakura firing a multitude of questions like how did it feel? And what did it taste like? Even the will he do that to me if I ask? At such a rapid rate it was hard to answer before the next one came. Hinata, who was walking with the pair while looking at the back of Naruto, as he walked and talked with Shikamaru and Choji, his best friends, just shook her head at the pair. Soon, Iruka came to a stop and turned to face the class, prompting them to do the same. The class soon crowded around their sensei for the last 3 years, all of them taking notice of the other figure that walked up to stand next to Iruka. Naruto narrowed his eyes, as his right hand twitched so slightly that even a Sharingan would have trouble picking up the movement. Mizuki growled in his mind, as the silver-haired shinobi came to a stop while flashing the class a warm and friendly smile, but Naruto could see the sick gleam in his eyes, especially when they locked gazes. No matter what Naruto did, Mizuki was always against him for what he used to hold in his gut. He was one of the more vocal fox demon brat haters, no matter what he tried. Alright, called out Iruka, gathering the attention of his chatting students. As you all know, today is the day of the genin exams. The first test is a Taijutsu test, as I said in the classroom. In this test you will have to go up against Mizuki-senpai. He indicated to the silver-haired man beside him, who waved at the class. And lasts for a minimum of 3 minutes. We will be judging you on your stance, and any opening you may have. He looked down to the clipboard in his hand before clearing his throat and looking back up at his excited class. We will be starting in alphabetical order, so with that said let's start with Abiram, Shino. The brown spiky-haired boy walked forward from the back. He was wearing a beige coat with pockets that he liked to rest his hands in almost all the time, and black glasses covering his normally emotionless eyes. Gray pants, and black shinobi sandals. The student body parted like the Red Sea. As the class creep walked to the ring, Naruto gave the Abiram clan hair a pat on the shoulder as he passed him, giving his silent support to his friend. Shino looked at Naruto out of the corner of his eyes and gave him a nod of thanks. Naruto chuckled as he retreated back to stand by Shikamaru's side, nudging the lazy boy every now and then to keep his friend awake. He sat back to observe the oncoming matches with a keen eye. I wonder if Sakura, Ino, and Hinata are gonna beat the crap out of Mizuki team, he thought eagerly, as he pictured the broken and beaten form of the blinded by hate Chunin. Whatever happens, he thought, as Shino landed a solid kick into the side of Mizuki, sending the man stumbling before he corrected himself. This is gonna be fun, he said out loud, making a few people near him shake their head at his childlike behavior. One of which was Sasuke Uchiha, though if one were to look close enough, they would have seen a slight smile on his normally dark and moody face. Yakami, I can already imagine the fangirl's screams. 56 minutes later. Well, thought Naruto, as he sighed to himself after watching one of Sasuke's fangirls get beaten after just a few hits, not wanting to get her hair messed up anymore. At least I put up a good fight, and they truly did. The Pink Princess Sakura's match didn't last too long as she used her own self-made, with the help of Naruto Taijutsu style called Dancing Deadly Cherry Blossom. Not very creative in its name, but correct in its description. The style relied on the user dancing around the attacks of their opponents, and delivering strong, precise blows to the body, breaking bones, and shattering bodies. Mizuki charged at Sakura with genin-level speeds, becoming a blur to most of the untrained students there, but not the pink-haired girl. All she did was cock her fist while unconsciously channeling chakra into her fist, like she had to do to make Naruto feel anything at all. She dodged the strike to her face by twisting her head to the side, and slammed her fist into the stomach of the off-balanced Mizuki, making him spit up blood and saliva while flying to the far wall, cracking the solid concrete of the building. So a shocked Iruka called the match, and a medic, as Sakura walked toward it cheering Naruto and Ino, while Hinata just clapped happily with a smile on her face, because of her friend's victory. She walked up to Naruto with looking in his eyes, playing with the dirt on the ground, timidly asking whether or not she did good. Naruto just smiled his foxy smile, and wrapped her up in a warm hug, whispering a loving congratulations in her ear. Sakura, despite being a lovely shade of red in the face, just placed her head on his chest, as flashes of what occurred between them earlier in the classroom filled her mind. Ino just glared at the pair in jealousy, and she clenched and unclenched her hand, trying to calm herself. Hinata just patted the girl's shoulder, making Ino release a sigh of defeat. Next was the Hyuga princess. Hinata made good use of her clan Taijutsu style, Gentle Fist, a style that makes use of the user's chakra, by forcing it into their opponent's chakra pathways, targeting one or two of their Chinketsu points with a series of blows. Inflicting extreme internal damage to the body, and potentially destroying the nearby organs, all done with only a single tap of a user's finger. Quite the formidable and deadly style of Taijutsu, gives meaning to the saying fighting Hyuga hand-to-hand is just a death wish, something that's made most of the Hyuga clan quite arrogant, thinking they were unbeatable. Hinata's fight only lasted 1 minute 30 seconds, because Hinata closed a few Tenketsu points in both Mizuki's arms and legs, rendering him a motionless sack of potatoes on the floor. Hinata had walked away from that fight with her head held high, and a smile on her lips, as Mizuki laid groaning and moaning on the floor. Naruto made sure to give her an extra big hug for that, something she was vocally happy about. The last one remaining to fight was Ino, because her name started with a Y, meaning she would be one of the last to step up. Naruto was broken out of his thoughts when the voice of Iruka called out next up, Uchiha Sasuke, and had to cover his ears, as squeals and giggles assaulted his hyper-powered senses. He huffed, as Sakura giggled by his side at his misfortune. The last loyal Uchiha brushed off the screams of affection and requests of dates, as he walked up with his hands in his pockets, and a scowl on his face. He stopped just opposite to the grinning Mizuki. His stance soon shifted into the classic interceptor fist style of the Uchiha clan, that relies on predicting the enemy's movements and countering them. The style could only be used to its full potential when used in conjunction with the Uchiha bloodline, the Sharingan. Something Sasuke was not in possession of yet. The two looked at each other, studying their opponent's form. Sasuke noticed a series of obvious openings in Mizuki's stance, probably to give students a chance, but there are far too many to actually seem to present any type of challenge whatsoever. Mizuki struck first, like he did with every student so far, running up to Sasuke with his genin speed. Sasuke tensed his muscles, ready to act, as soon as Mizuki was close enough. Time ticked, as Mizuki approached the still Sasuke, just as the silver-head Chunin was about to lash out with the right hook. The dark-haired Uchiha stuck out his foot, tripping the charging sensei like an adult would a child. Sasuke reached into his pouch with shocking speed, and pulled out a kunai, the metal shining, as the sun hit the steel. He followed down after Mizuki, and held the kunai at his throat, while narrowing his dark eyes at the squirming form of his sensei. Sasuke let out the signature H-chan of the Uchiha clan, as Iruka called the match in his favor. He sheathed his kunai in his pouch again, and put his hands in his pockets, while slowly walking away from the ring to stand on his own. The screams and squeals of the fangirls grew in volume, as the cool and hot Sasuke walked away, while Mizuki pulled himself up with a hidden scowl. Shikamaru raised his head, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hands while yawning. Troublesome females, he complained, blinking the remaining sleep out of his eyes while stretching. He suddenly froze, as a frightening feeling washed all over him, his head slowly to look over his shoulder with a squeak. His face broke out in a nervous sweat, as the darkly grinning forms of Ino and Sakura stood above him, both having that look in the eye while cracking their knuckles menacingly. Wait a minute, he threw his hands up to hopefully defuse the situation. I'm saying that fangirls are troublesome, not all girls, even if they are. He bit back the wince at his poor choice of words, and the sound of grinding teeth. Well, that's not what I meant. You see, Shikamaru's eyes darted all over the place to try and see any way out of his tense predicament. His eyes soon locked with the positively glowing blue of Naruto's, as he looked at him in amusement. Naruto. He yelled out in mock friendliness, as he let out a nervous chuckle, while the two continued to stalk towards the lazy Nar, while he called out to one of his childhood friends, as he knew Choji was going to next to no help here. Said friend was just sat there happily munching on his bag of chips. Naruto, you gotta help me, man. Get your crazy chicks in line or something, man. He could see the look of laughter die in Naruto's eyes, and all that remained was fear and pity. Naruto shook his head in despair. As he looked at Shikamaru in pity, he slowly raised his hand to the shaking Nar. He showed 3 fingers to the lazy shinobi in training that makes 3 shika. I'm afraid I can't do anything for you now. You have been a good friend, and it has been a pleasure knowing you. He and Choji closed their eyes and put their hand over their heart in a mock sort of send-off for a dead comrade. The girls smirked as they advanced towards the shaking form Shikamaru, ignoring his cries of traitors and what happened to leave no man behind. Uzumaki, Naruto called Iruka as he sent his little brother a supportive smile, completely missing the sick and twisted look in Mizuki's eyes as Naruto made his way to the ring. But not before Hinata dragged him to her by the arm. "Good luck, Naruto-kun," Hinata whispered in his ear. Just as Naruto was about to pull away, Hinata kissed him on the cheek with pink on her own. Naruto stood there with wide eyes as Hinata pulled away and turned to sit down to watch his match. Before she did, however, she sent the shocked but happy Naruto a slightly flirtatious smile as her eyes twinkled in amusement at his reaction. Naruto snapped out of his daze and shook his head slowly, a fond smile on his face as he made his way to stand across from the battle-ready Mizuki. "That's my Harem," he thought to himself as he got into his own loose stance, ready to lay the smackdown on the angry blind teacher. Even now I can see the rage and hate in his eyes, Naruto sighed as he looked at Mizuki, seeing the crazed look on his face. Iruka looked from one to the other as they glared at each other. He shook his head as he raised his arm high into the air. Naruto just looked ahead with a lazy stance and looked as if this would be no trouble to stomp out the more experienced Chunin. Who they think is more experienced? Mizuki almost growled out in rage as he looked at Naruto. Was this kid really that cocky? Just because he was the Kyuubi reincarnated doesn't mean he was strong enough to not take him seriously. He would beat that brat into submission and show him who was boss. Mizuki's mind was so deluded that it actually seemed plausible to him, just like the idea of Naruto actually being the Kyuubi. Iruka brought his hand down, calling the beginning of the match. "You may start." He sent Naruto a nod of good luck, something the blonde boy smiled his thanks to. Mizuki wasted no time in rushing at the bored-looking boy at high genin to low chunin speeds, making him seemingly disappear to most of the class. Only the heiresses, Iruka, and of course Naruto could keep up. Naruto just looked at the rapidly approaching Mizuki. Naruto could see the dark and slightly insane look in his eyes. He shook his head in defeat. There really was no changing people like this. Too blind in their hate to really see what was right in front of them. Though mused Naruto, as he dodged Mizuki's sloppy rage-filled strike and grabbed his wrist in a steel-like grip, feeling the bones in his grasp groan, just like the person they were in. Those type of people are the most fun to prank. He gave the arm in his hold a vicious tug and let go, making the silver-haired Chunin stumble forwards. Right into Naruto's brutal spinning heel kick, the force shatters Mizuki's jaw into hundreds of bone fragments. His neck snapped to the side, and his body soon followed afterwards, sending him flying back at a startling speed, faster than when he rushed at Naruto. The crowd didn't know what happened. One moment Mizuki was rushing Naruto, then the next he was flying the opposite direction, as Naruto stood in the same place only with his right leg raised, as if he got kicked. Naruto took a deep breath, as he lowered his legs slowly, and looked at the stunned speechless Iruka, who stood there mouth open wide just like he was when Naruto showed off his new look. The blonde took a side glance to the rest of the class to see them in the same state as Iruka was. Is it really that shocking to see the dead son knock out a Chunin with one kick of speeds faster than they could follow? After all, deception is a ninja's bread and butter. Naruto cleared his throat while looking at his older brother expectantly, waiting for him to do his job. Iruka blinked owlishly, trying to comprehend what he had just seen. "Well, Naruto Uzumaki, you passed the Taijutsu test with flying colors." He looked towards the twitching form of Mizuki, as blood dripped down out of his mouth at an alarming rate. "It seems that because of you I now have been the one to test the skills of the remaining students." He sighed, as he rubbed his temples when he saw Naruto's sheepish face, as he rubbed the back of his head. Just to sit back down, Iruka sighed again, as he looked at who was next on his board, absent-mindedly taking note of Ino, as she rushed Naruto to hug the boy. He shook his head with a fond smile. Naruto was a natural when it came to talking to ladies, or anyone really. At his young age, he already had 3 stunningly beautiful girls all pining for his affections. It made him wonder just how many would fall to the boyish charm that Naruto just seemed to use. He buried his thoughts, as he called out one of the last 7 names Wakata, Haru. "You're up next. Whatever happens with Naruto." He was grateful, not blessed was the right word, that the Hokage convinced him to become the teacher to Naruto. He blocked a punch aimed at his face with little to no effort on his part, and sent one of his own to his student. He was proud of what his student had become, and what he would no doubt be. He saw the way the villagers looked at him nowadays, and it brought him great joy to see their hate turn to acceptance one face at a time. Naruto Uzumaki was truly one of a kind. Few minutes later, Naruto, Sakura, and Hinata all nodded and clapped with proud smiles, as Ino lasted the full 3 minutes against Iruka, landing a few hits on the skilled academy teacher, despite taking a few herself. Taijutsu was never really her strong point, but she was doing a lot better than she did in the last Genin exams, having forfeited to keep her looks to impress Sasuke-kun. God, was she a fangirl if Naruto ever saw one. He couldn't even begin to describe his happiness at her kicking her tendencies. To be honest, that was one of the reasons Inoichi, Ino's father, probably liked him. Along with Sakura's dad, despite his wife's obvious detainment to the blonde Jubi. Iruka just watched in silence as the class talked and congratulated each other with a fond smile. After a few minutes he brought his fist up to his mouth and coughed loudly to get everyone's attention. His smile soon dropped as the class ignored him and continued to talk amongst themselves. His left eye twitched dangerously as a tick mark appeared on his forehead, his face coloring a rageful red. His head suddenly grew to an epic size as he roared out, "Shut up, you bakas." The force of his voice made his students grab onto anything near them to stop them from being blown away, though it did blow away their will to speak, as the irate Iruka calmed himself down. Now he said with a soft and warm smile on his face again, seeing, as Mizuki is still in the nurse's room from that blow to the jaw, he glared at a nervous Naruto, who scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and shame that only grew when Hinata and Sakura shook their heads at him. "Let's go to the Shurikenjutsu part of the exam." Iruka turned and walked away, not waiting for any type of answer, as the class fell into step again. After a few minutes of walking, he came to a stop just in front of 3 pillars of wood with targets on them, along with a large amount of crack and indentations. Like someone had thrown something at them repeatedly, which would be a correct assumption. "Now, you know what to do, but in case you have forgotten. You will be throwing 10 kunai, and 5 shuriken at the targets at the end of the field, making the total you can hit being 15. The lowest you can score is 8, anything lower than I am afraid you will fail, and have to stay back another year." He sent the class a sickening smirk that spoke of pain and misery, as he finished his speech. "Like last time, we will be doing this in alphabetical order. Abiram Shino, you're up first." Naruto smirked as the silent boy walked to the front like last time, a plan already forming in his mind. He could already imagine the heat he was going to get from doing what he was about to do, but it was going to be worth it. Because, no matter how old he will become, he was a prankster at both heart and soul. Beside, you know what they say, once a prankster, always a prankster. Naruto lived by that saying. He blocked out most of the civilian students. He did, however, take note of the fact that at least 7 passed, and the rest failed almost spectacularly, except Sakura, who passed with a decent 12. But just like he expected, all of the clan kids got the average minimum of 10, only Hinata, Ino, Sasuke, and Naruto got 15. Sasuke's turn shocked a lot of people watching, as he threw all 10 kunai at once, followed by the 5 shrunken in the same fashion. He had brushed off all the praise sent his way with a cocky, but cold smile, but only Naruto could see the challenge in the dark-haired boy's eyes. Let it be known that Naruto Uzumaki never backs down from a fight, so with squared shoulders and a ramrod back, he channeled his wind-style chakra, a hard feat to do seeing, as the equipment provided weren't made for element manipulation. The weapons glowed a bright blue, making the students who didn't know confused, while the people that did just looked on in shock and surprise. Naruto hid his foxy smile from everyone, as he threw the weapons just like Sasuke without even grunting. The kunai cut through the air at blurring speeds, leaving a blue trail in their wake. The entire class just looked on with wide eyes, as the kunai impacted the wooden pillars on the bullseye. Then tore right through the sturdy post, sending splinters everywhere, but the kunai didn't stop. They continued on until they were buried up to the hilt in the stone 6 meters behind the 3 now shattered targets. Everyone just stared with eyes wide, as Naruto stood there with a smug grin, and his hands on his hips. The 3 ice princesses were the first to get over the shock, having gotten used to these things after knowing Naruto for the past 6 years. Even if seeing him control his element at such a young age was astounding, it was becoming the norm of seeing him do things that shouldn't be possible. Besides, what's next? Him being able to take on a tailed beast one-on-one? You're right, that sounded completely asinine, and it wasn't possible for one person to fight one of the 9 Bijuu anyway. After the whole class had their turn of showing their skills of Shurikenjutsu, Iruka had led them inside for the final stretch of the exam. He could almost see the nerves building up in some of the more unprepared students, the ones that never bothered to actually train. Once everyone was sitting back down in their classroom seats, Iruka got to work on quickly marking down everything that had happened in the last hour, especially Naruto's sudden burst in skill, and shocking display of chakra control and manipulation when he fed it through normal metal weapons. Most full-grown ninja would have trouble doing what he did with weapons designed for that type of use. Right? Called Iruka, as he looked up from his board, having put down the latest results for each student. The last portion of this exam is all about ninjutsu. Just like last time, I will call your name, and you will follow me into this room where you will show me the 3 Academy Jutsu, the Kourimi no Jutsu or Substitution Jutsu, the Bunshin no Jutsu or Clone Jutsu, and the Henge no Jutsu or Transformation Jutsu. He walked over to the door, holding it open, as he called out the first student's name. Once again, Abiram Shino, would you please join me in the next room? Iruka waited patiently, as the heavily covered boy strolled out of the open door. Just as Iruka was about to follow him, he turned towards the remaining students, and sent them a glare. Everyone will stay in this room until their name is called. His glare intensified, as he spotted the innocently whistling Naruto. Is that understood? He asked in a stiff and firm tone, leaving no room for disagreement. Naruto just continued to try and look innocent, but the look was whipped off his face, as a hand struck the back of his head with a decent amount of force, sending his face into the desk with a crash. He didn't even have to look for him to know whose hand it was, as he groaned weakly. Was that really necessary for Ino-chan? His only response was a low growling noise, as his head was pushed farther down into the wood of the desk. Okay, get off me you crazy women, fine. He looked up at the smug-looking Iruka, as he bit out a reluctant yes Iruka-sensei like the rest of the class. The scared Chunin just nodded with a smug smile, as he shut the door, leaving the class to wait for the last test. The one that tended to make it or break it. Most were calm and cool, talking to their friends, as if this was just another day, while others seemed to be shaking in either fear and nervousness or in giddiness and excitement. Naruto was of the first category. While his chakra control was nowhere near perfect enough for delicate work like medical ninjutsu, it was still amazing for someone with the amount of chakra he had inside of him. Patience was never really his strong suit though. What could he do while he waited? Suddenly an idea popped into his head, making him giggle mischievously, and move to get up. He was stopped by a firm and strong yet gentle grip on his arm. He looked over to see a far too sweetly smiling Hinata with her eyes closed. He started to sweat. He never liked that look on his Hyuga princess. It normally meant pain if he didn't comply. So without her even having to say a word, Naruto was quick to take his seat again, as sweat dripped off his face like a waterfall. He was relieved when Hinata gave him a nod of acceptance, and turned to talk to Ino and Sakura again. Naruto sighed in frustration, but his face had a fond and happy smile. Just like when we were married. Hinata always was the dominant one in the little collective we had going on. Naruto chuckled to himself, as a past memory came up. Even if she wasn't the oldest, she could tame most anyone with that smile of hers. He shivered in remembrance, fearing the many times he had seen that smile. Hinata suddenly felt a smug pride enter her body, like she had thoroughly told off someone from doing something incredibly stupid. She just shrugged it off however, and continued to listen, as Ino told her and Sakura about a recurring dream she had been having about a metal cord. A piece of glass, and a rubber duck of all things. Naruto sighed in boredom, as he sunk back into his seat and closed his eyes. What was he gonna do for the next untold amount of time? He was the great Naruto Uzumaki Naruto, and he would figure something out. 1 hour and 27 minutes later. A nap. A nap was what the great Naruto Uzumaki came up with, resting the eyes, slowing the brain or having some beauty sleep. Whatever you want to call it. Ino just watched with a small smile, as the blonde Jubi snoozed in his seat, drool dripping down his chin to the hard wooden desk. After Hinata and Sakura had been called, the two had decided to go and train, their new forehead protectors displayed proudly on their neck and right thigh respectively, leaving the two blondes alone with a few others in the class. Though Naruto was fast asleep, leaving her alone with no one she liked to talk to. She sighed to herself, as she looked at the object of her affections, his blonde and silver hair almost shining, as the light hit it, her fingers twitched with want. Devilishly handsome when he is awake, flashing his foxy grin, unbelievingly cute when he is asleep, she sighed to herself again, eyes shining with adoration, as Naruto seemed to burrow farther into his crossed arms where he had laid his head. Ino was awoken from her daydreaming, while Naruto jolted up from his actual dreaming, when the door slammed open with a loud bang, as a smiling Iruka walked in. Naruto. You up next? He called, as he looked at the blonde and silver-haired boy, who hastily wiped the drool of his with a sheepish smile. Iruka just shook his head in exasperation, holding the door open, as he motioned for Naruto to go through. Ino watched, as Naruto stood up with a conflicted look in her eyes. She took a deep breath, as she came to a decision. Before Naruto rushed off to Iruka, Ino pulled him to her with a strong tug. Naruto yelled out in shock, and before he knew it, a pair of soft lips were planted on his cheek. Naruto turned a lovely shade of red, a color Ino seemed to match. It wasn't a second later that Ino pulled away, whispering a small but happy good luck as she sat down, refusing to look at the stock-still Naruto. She turned her head to the side to look out the window with her arms crossed under her chest, painfully aware of the looks she was getting from the remaining people in the class. Naruto walked away in a daze, his hand raised to his cheek. His fingers traced the pink lipstick mark on his cheek, the pink blending well with the scarlet of his face. He passed Iruka, absent-mindedly picking up on the barely suppressed laughter from the scared teacher. Before Iruka closed the door, Naruto looked over his shoulder at Ino. The two locked eyes for a split second before the two looked away again, their faces alight more than before. Well then, thought Naruto, as he shook his head side to side with a smile slowly forming on his face. Into something long ago memories flashed in his head, thinking of his past life before everything was taken from him. Did that before we got together last time. As well, he brought a finger to his chin, as he fell into step with Iruka, ignoring the teasing aimed his way by the chunin. Wonder if this could mean the same this time around. He chuckled at the thought. After having that kiss with Sakura, he knew the talk was coming soon. Last time he had that talk with the girls, there were a lot of sharp objects that wanted to take away his ability to carry on his clan. Not a pleasant experience that he was looking forward to going through again. The two of them walked to the room where the final part of the exam was meant to take place, one trying to ignore the other continuous prodding and poking to get a reaction. Soon the pair came to a stop in a lightly colored wooden room, with a single table littered with dozens of blue-clothed Konoha forehead protectors, and a lone chair to the left of said table. Iruka walked over to the table, then turned to talk to the only other person in the room. This test would normally be done with 2 overseers, but seeing as Mizuki is still unconscious from that kick to the jaw earlier. That was a very strong and well-placed kick, by the way, well done. Anyway, I will be doing this test on my own. Naruto gave a nod of confirmation to the information given to him, hiding the satisfaction from the damage he had done to the silver-haired team. Okay, first you will show me the Kawarimi no Jutsu. Iruka looked over his board with a pen in his hand, ready to mark down Naruto's scores. Naruto nodded again, as his chakra reached out to the nearest object he was able to switch with. In this case it was the lone chair in the room, probably for this reason. Suddenly, Naruto and the chair had switched places, without any hand signs, smoke or even a noise. Iruka started to write quickly, as Naruto appeared back to the place he was before, like he hadn't even moved at all. Jutsu 1. The Kawarimi no Jutsu. Quickly used. No smoke. No hand signs. Didn't have to call the name of the jutsu, as he performed it. Result. Mastered it to a level far beyond the requirement needed. Iruka wrote down, as fast as he could, astounded by his, secretly, favorite student's display. After a few seconds, Iruka looked up at the stoic Naruto who stood there with his arms crossed, waiting for the next part. Okay, the next one is the Bunshin no Jutsu, he sent Naruto a worried and comforting look at the same time, a weird combo really. Don't worry if you can't do this one, okay Naruto. With your results from the rest of the exam, you will pass with flying colors. Iruka reached out to pat Naruto's shoulder, like a supportive big brother would. Naruto just smirked at the scar, his hand flying into a cross sign in front of him, his middle and index fingers on both hands pointing out. He called out one of his more favorite and useful out of his massive arsenal of jutsus. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto carefully molded the required amount of chakra to only produce his minimum at the moment of 5 clones. He didn't really need the hand sign to do the jutsu, but he always felt slightly badass while doing it. The room was filled with smoke, as 5 identical Naruto, all wearing the same grin, popped into existence besides the original. Iruka looked on with wide eyes, his mind slowly trying to comprehend what had just happened. Finally his mouth started working along with his brain, as he sputtered out as stunned Naruto, that's an A-rank forbidden jutsu. How do you even know about jutsu, let alone be able to use it? He was truly stunned. That was a danger that most full-grown shinobi could use, and yet, he was a 12-year-old boy, not even out of the academy yet, using it like it was nothing. He wasn't even sweating, nor did his breathing pattern change in the slightest. He used it like he's been using it since he was a child. The main reason it was an A-rank forbidden jutsu was because of the absolutely massive amount of chakra required to even make 1 clone, let alone 5. Plus, the hidden feature of the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was the memory feedback once a clone's life was used up. Most would use this as a way of boosting training time up exponentially, making a day's worth of training into a year's worth, if enough clones were used. Not a bad idea at all, until you count in the dangerously high chance of brain damage from having so many memories rammed into your head. So seeing a child perform this type of jutsu like it was nothing was quite the startling experience. All 6 of the Narutos just chuckled, as they rubbed the back of their heads in sync, before 5 vanished in another puff of smoke, leaving the original standing there on his own, his grin still plastered on his face. Inuani-san showed it to me when he saw that I couldn't do the normal Bunshin no Jutsu, because of my giant chakra reserves. Not a lie, but not the truth, seeing, as Inu did indeed show him the Naruto did however, know it before it was shown to him so. Kakashi seemed to take a bigger role in his life this time around for some reason, becoming something of an older brother to the secretly over century-old Uzumaki. Iruka just shook his head at the information. Of course it was Kakashi, the two were seen around the other so often, and acted just like a family. Just like before, Iruka started to write down the necessary things needed to pass the blonde. Okay then. Jutsu 2. The Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto Uzumaki was unable to perform the standard clone, but was able to use the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu with little to no effort. Able to produce an astounding 5 clones, much better than the required 2. Overall results, much better than predicted, pass. Iruka concluded with a giant smile on his face, proud of the skills Naruto was suddenly displaying. Okay, so finally we have the Henge no Jutsu. Transform into anything you can, okay Naruto. Start whenever you are ready. Naruto nodded. As he was covered by a plume of smoke, Iruka braced himself for more surprises from the blonde and silver boy, expecting the theme of today to carry on even now. He however was not ready for what he saw when the smoke cleared. Yondaime-sama. He almost shouted in shock, his eyes wide at the ghost of Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, in front of him. Because standing there was the spitting image of the face on the mountain. Long shoulder-length spiky golden hair, much like Naruto's new style, but without the silver highlights. Check. Calm and cool azure blue eyes that could turn even more icy than a glacier in the winter, again just like Naruto's cheek. Angular face that attracted a lot of female attention when the man was younger, when more just like Naruto's own face, despite the lack of whiskers. Cheek. Everything was spot on, the white cloak with red flames, the green flak jacket over a full blue bodysuit. Iruka-san, even the voice was spot on, having heard it a few times when he was a child. Iruka snapped to attention. The voice was so full of strength, authority, and the ever-present kindness that it almost made him think that the fourth Hokage never did that night 12 years ago. I believe that if one does not understand what it feels like to fight, not for themselves, but to fight for their loved ones and family, then they do not possess the will of fire. As Hokage, I have the whole village to protect. They are my family. We must do our best to protect the future of this village, the children. We must nurture them, and to help them grow into great people to let when he pass on. You have done a great job, as a teacher, Iruka-san. Please, never lose your own personal will of fire, and continue to teach the next generation of ninja. You are a true shinobi. His words brought great joy to the scared, as he nodded a firm yes. Iruka was knocked out of his stiff ramrod stance, when the softly smiling form of the blind Yondaime was covered from view by a cloud of fluffy gray. Soon the smoke cleared to show Naruto from before. Iruka blinked, his mind slowly taking in the change. He couldn't, however, knock the painfully obvious similarities between his favorite student and the yellow flash of Konoha. An idea was quick to pop into his mind when he shook off as soon as it appeared. No, he thought with a small scoff. Naruto couldn't be related to the Yondaime. The third Hokage would have told the entire village. If that was the case, he concluded with a firm nod, completely sure with his thoughts. But no matter how hard he tried, he could almost feel the niggling feeling at the back of his mind. What if that wasn't the case? Naruto chuckled to himself as he watched the sea of emotions cross Iruka's eyes. He was well aware of what his sensei was thinking about. After a few minutes of silently watching, Naruto saw Iruka nod to himself slightly, seemingly coming to a conclusion. So Iruka-sensei, he gave them a foxy grin, his eyes positively sparkling with mirth. Do I pass? He asked, as innocently as he could, but the entire image was ruined by the grin still stuck on his face. Iruka coughed to himself as he reached out to the table next to him, his fingers wrapping around the cold metal of Naruto's achievement. He looked at the leaf insignia engraved into the metal with a fond smile. He turned to Naruto, his smile still on his face, as he held the forehead protector close to his chest. It gives me great joy to hand one of these out to a student that I have taught from the past few years. He looked down at the universal sign of a ninja's willingness to serve his or her village. But with you, it feels different. It's like seeing your little brother finally overcome something and become a man. Iruka looked up at the stunned Naruto, with a happy smile and watery eyes. He held out the protector to the blonde, who grabbed it with robotic movement and shaky fingers. It is my greatest pleasure to present to you, Uzumaki Naruto, the Konohagakure hit I-8. You are a full-fledged shinobi now. Protect our village and its people with your life. He brought the newly minted, again, ninja into a brotherly hug as he whispered into his ear. I'm proud of you, Naruto. If you ask Kakashi, he probably will be too. Iruka pulled back and patted the blonde and silver-haired boy on the shoulder, a warm smile clear for anyone to see. Naruto raised the 8 to his forehead, his silver-tinted gold bags being pushed away from his face. He tied the cloth together behind his head, taking great joy in the familiar feeling. The light reflected off of the cool and untouched metal as Naruto wiped the tears from Iruka's speech away. He sent a nod of both respect and gratitude, one which the teacher sent back happily. Now thought Naruto, as he walked out of the room, a small scheming grin making its way across his face. Time to set my plans into motion. He brought a finger to his chin in a mock-thinking pose, his eyes dancing with excitement. I hear Kurigakure is nice this time of year. I wonder how Mei-chan is nowadays. Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.